What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. This is episode number 72, and my special guest is Courtland Crain. Courtland is 22 years old and an upcoming first-year Speech-Language Pathology Master's student at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Courtland states, "I've been a person who stutters my whole life and just recently found confidence and acceptance when I started college. My goal is to be a role model and inspiration for those who stutter, teaching the idea of acceptance, confidence, and management of stuttering. The past few years, I've worked as a camp counselor at Camp Say, which is a summer camp for young people who stutter, and am involved with several stuttering-related projects locally at my school and within the National Stuttering Association. I am honored to have him as a guest with me on the My Stuttering Life podcast. Welcome, Courtland Crain."
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man.
This is a huge honor, and so we have a lot of topics to cover, so let's get started, sir. So do you remember when you first began to stutter?
Yeah, I actually do have like a very clear first memory. I remember I was probably about 4 years old, and I was in the backyard of my childhood home, and I remember just asking my mom, why do I talk differently than everyone else? And that's when she just told me straight up that you stutter. And I think that from that point on, that's when I really started to become aware that I stutter, and that led to a childhood of shyness and avoidance. So I was pretty aware of it at an early age.
Does it run in your family? Are there any other family members who stutter?
Yeah, my father actually stutters, or used to stutter as a kid. He was one of those people who stutter who grew out of it in their adulthood. He also passed on another neurological disorder called Tourette's syndrome to myself and two of my older brothers.
Your dad is quite similar to my mom, because she had it growing up, and then in like her teenage years, she just told herself, "I'm stopping," and she stopped. Courtland, she stopped. So
that's crazy.
I'm like, that is some woman power. That is girl power, woman power. I mean, but for a lot of us, we do not grow out of it, and we have it for the rest of our lives. And but for a handful, they just grow out of it. And so, I'm of the other half. So,
yeah, right.
But it's all good, Courtland. It's all good.
Exactly.
So, have you ever had speech therapy? And if you did, was it helpful?
Yeah, I went to speech therapy for probably 12 years growing up. I started as early as before elementary school. I went to a private practice, and then once I started elementary school, I went to a speech therapist every week. I was pulled out of class, and we mainly worked on fluency. And to be totally honest, I really didn't have the greatest experiences with speech therapy when I was younger. I was really scared that I was going to stutter the rest of my life, and I was anxious that speech therapy wasn't actually helping me. And I was never really motivated to use my tools and my techniques. And that kind of changed when I started high school, because my sophomore year of high school is when I started working with Dr. Peter Ramig, who's a pretty well-known speech therapist in the field, who specializes in stuttering. The next year after that was actually the last year that I ever had speech therapy. I worked with a guy named Dr. Ryan Pollard, who took over Peter's practice. And Dr. Pollard actually stuttered too. And, he was a young guy, and we really were able to relate super, super well. And, working with him really taught me to be more aware of my stuttering, and he worked on a lot of the emotional aspects of stuttering with me. And working with him taught me to try to push myself to really accept stuttering as part of who I am, something that I never really had when I was younger, because my speech therapists in elementary school were always focused on fluency. Whereas, all along, what really helped me was working on the emotional aspects of stuttering.
Whoa, I mean, you hit on a lot of points that I want to just go over real quickly. And so
Sure.
the first one, because I mean, this one just rang out of my head. Okay, so you are a lot younger than I am. I'm almost 50. So when they called you out of school, how did they do it? Did they do it over the PA, or did a person knock on the room door and pull you out? How did they do that, and how did that make you feel?
Usually it was a person who knocked on the door and just opened it real quick. That was mainly in high school, but in elementary school, I always had a specific time every week, and the teacher would always notify me when I'd have to go, and sometimes I would have to notify her when I'd have to go. And when I was in elementary school, I didn't really feel that horrible about it, like getting pulled out. But once I started in middle school was when I was actually really annoyed with it, because that's when I was in classes that I started enjoying a lot more. And to be pulled out of those classes, just to go see a speech therapist for half an hour to an hour, I was pretty upset about that. And that was when I just started realizing that I really had a quote unquote problem with my stuttering. And I was very insecure whenever I had to leave the classroom.
See, and during my day, because I'm a lot older, during the 1970s, okay, no judging. So in the late 1970s, they would knock on the door, and this is weird how our brain just picks up on these vivid memories, but I can remember them just knocking on the door and then talking in a very loud voice, "Pedro Pena, it's time for speech therapy," in front of everybody. And then it's like, okay, and then here comes the laughing, here comes the mocking, here comes, and oh gosh, I just hated, I mean, I hated that with a passion. And then another great valid point that you brought up is, during all my years of speech therapy, and I mean, I've had speech therapy all through grade school, in junior high school, in the military, and in college. And never once had they focused on the emotional aspect. I mean, you hit it right on the nail. It was about being fluent. And and once you made that comment, it's like, wow. I mean, I wished back in my day that was addressed, because I mean, that is a huge component, because I didn't actually embrace it until I was 40 years old. The big 40.
Wow.
I had been stuttering for 35 years, just trying to be fluent, wishing I was fluent, when it would have just helped me at an early age to just accept it. And so, that would have been extremely helpful.
Wow, yeah, completely. I feel, really lucky and fortunate that I was able to work with such great speech therapists at a young age. I mean, I was 17, 18 at the time, and that's really when I started to make a change and start to focus less on the fluency, but more on the acceptance.
Wow. Now, how was high school with having, a stutter? Because, school is hard enough as it is. You're trying to fit in, but, if you have a stutter, that makes it extremely much more complex. How did you handle high school with having a stutter?
Yeah, high school was a really, really interesting time for me. Because when I started high school was when it was in 2012 when we moved from Florida to Colorado, and I was starting at this brand new school. It was a really small school. We had probably 20 kids in our grade, and small town. And I made a really weird choice to change my name to Chad when I moved out there. Primarily because I stuttered less on that name than I did on Courtland, and I didn't want people to know that I stutter when I introduced myself. So starting high school, I went by Chad for about 2 years. So then when I actually started at this new school, I was extremely insecure. I remember her first 2 months of being at this new school, I actually ate lunch in the bathroom. And then the rest of the year after that, I either went home during lunch or I went to the library. I really didn't try to make an effort at all to make new friends, to talk to other classmates, to raise my hand. And that really led me down a bad road, because the next year after that, I chose to do completely online school my sophomore year. And this was primarily because of my stuttering. I was trying to avoid having to go to a regular brick and mortar school and, having to talk to people. That eventually got kind of out of hand because I stayed in my room all day for like an entire year. And my mom eventually forced me to go back to a regular school, which was a different school. It was also really small. And that year, that was the year that I started working with Dr. Ryan Pollard, who changed my life. And that was the year that I kind of started to actually make friends again. I started having more conversations. I would eat lunch with everybody, and I would put myself out there more, because I was still, not really too afraid to stutter. Although the next year after that, when we moved back to Florida, I went to online school again, you know, I kind of had this huge relapse where I just still wouldn't want to talk to people. And so that's how I ended my high school years, was online.
Oh, wow. During my whole school years, when you were telling me that you ate your lunch in the bathroom, I ate it in the boys' restroom, also in the janitor's closet.
Wow.
Because, you know, I could just easily close the door in the janitor's closet, and, you know, I had the guilt and the, you know, shame of it all. But that's where I would eat the, you know, bulk of my meals, because no one wanted to, you know, hang out with the kid who couldn't talk, you know, who would just spit trying to say, you know, Pedro Pena, you know. And then picking back on what you had did when you had your name changed, I did the same thing.
Really?
But I changed it from Pedro to Trey, because see, and all, okay, so you just brought up a memory that I hadn't told anybody, Courtland. Well, now
Yeah.
the whole world knows, but
yeah.
But back in high school, I went by Trey because it was the letter that I could easily just roll off of my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And so in high school, because, I mean, granted, I didn't have any friends going through school. And in high school, I joined the drama club, which is odd because, you know, how can a stutterer just join the drama club?
Yeah.
But these awesome people, they welcomed me in, and I mean, they were just positive, and they were always happy. And they would tell me, we don't care if you stutter. Join us. We will have a good time. And guess what? I did a play. I was in The Wizard of Oz. I was the lion. And here's the head scratcher. So, you know, I learned all my lines. I practiced for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so when I got up on that stage, you know, in full costume, makeup, and braces, when I got up on stage, I did every single line. There was no stuttering whatsoever. There were no blocks. And people, I mean, I could see them in the audience. Their mouths were open because they're like,
Yeah.
how can Pedro do that? He can't even say his name. But what I found out is in drama class, when doing a play, I wasn't Pedro. I was a different character, and that character did not stutter, and therefore I did not stutter.
Wow.
That's when I had applied what I learned in drama to my life, which, you know, later we will talk about. But yeah, I mean, that was when you were talking about your, you know, name change. I mean, that brought up like, ooh, a bunch of memories. So, okay, let's get back on track. So,
Okay.
okay, so do you have any advice for parents and teachers with regards to children who stutter?
Yeah. And I actually made a whole YouTube video about this too. I grew up with a very, very great mother who really encouraged me my whole life to be myself and to not let stuttering get in the way. And, you know, I use the example of my mom whenever I give advice about this because, you know, I couldn't have had someone more supportive and and encouraging in my life. And what she did is she saw me for who I really am. She didn't look at my stuttering at all. I mean, she saw me, this funny little kid who was really great around his brothers and who had, friends in elementary school and was great around them. But, I was still really shy around like new people. And she really urged me to come out of my comfort zone. And I feel like that was, the greatest thing that, happened to me as a kid, because, looking back on it now, I want to use that and apply it to when I'm going to be working with kids who stutter as a speech pathologist. And then regarding with teachers throughout elementary school, because my mom was extremely involved with the schools. She talked with the teachers about my stuttering. They had IEP meetings a lot, and my teachers were really aware, and they always gave me extra time in class of speech. They were extremely accommodating, and even in high school they were very accommodating. I remember one of my English professors let me do a presentation just to him because I wasn't really comfortable giving it in front of the rest of the class. And as teachers with children in class who stutter, I mean, really, the biggest piece of advice that I have is just to give them as much time as they need to speak, and to not single them out. You don't want to make a kid feel like they're really different than the rest of their class. You want to include them with everything. And I think that, parents and teachers, I mean, a kid's at home all day with their parents, and if they're not home, they're usually at school with their teachers. So these are the kind of people who are really going to be changing their lives, who really have the power to make an influence. And it really stems to just, allowing them time to speak and giving them the time of day.
See, and that is great advice, because back in my day, I wish school-wise that there was that, a collaboration with, the parent, the speech teacher, and the school counselor, that way everybody is on the same page. But that didn't happen, and there were times when the teacher would, just call me up to talk out loud. And that's when I would excuse myself and go to the restroom. Mm-hmm. And so, I did that for years, for decades.
I did that a lot too.
They thought I had a medical condition.
Yeah.
No, it's just Pedro. And so that was also great advice for parents also. Mm-hmm. It is extremely important, to have patience, and then to just listen, because, nowadays, in this world of which I call a microwave world, mm-hmm. In which everything has to happen in under a minute, it's just not feasible. Just, give me time and the words will come out. So job-wise, Courtland, had you ever experienced discrimination because of your stutter?
I've actually been really lucky that I haven't had any job discrimination. I've had a few jobs. I mean, I worked at Crate and Barrel, which is a retail store, and all the workers there were extremely accommodating, and they were really accepting of my stuttering. And actually, all the jobs I've had started after I started college, which was when I started having more confidence and acceptance with my stuttering. And recently, I've been working as an Instacart and Postmates driver, and so every day I'm going to grocery stores and I'm talking to restaurants and customers, and everyone really has been extremely great about it. I can't even recall any kind of negative experience that I've had.
Wow, how cool. Now, job interviews. So how did you handle job interviews?
Yes, so job interviews, especially with people who stutter, can be really tricky because obviously when you go in there and you start stuttering, they might just assume that you're really nervous. So first off, I always let them know kind of first thing, like right when I start to stutter, I'll say, oh, by the way, I stutter. And that helps to break the ice a little bit. And I've found that just really relieves a lot of anxiety and tension that you may have. I've only had about 3 job interviews, and, I think I did really well on all of them. And I think one thing too is that my personality and charm really outshined my stuttering. And because I had confidence in my stuttering and I let them know and everything, it made them, the employer, feel more comfortable talking to me, and they didn't feel that, stuttering was going to hinder my performance at a job.
Ooh, wow, you hit on some awesome points. So, okay, let me piggyback on what you were just talking about. I've had over 20 job interviews, and, the first half, man, they were rocky. I would hyperventilate. At one time I passed out. At one job interview, I passed a kidney stone while I was trying to stutter. I mean, it was just, they rushed me to the ER. Granted, I didn't get hired, but anyway. So,
Gosh.
I mean, I've had some doozy job interviews where I just bombed. I mean, I bombed them all. But later in life, what I found extremely beneficial, like you, I disclosed. And so when I walk in, I greet everybody. I'm Pedro Pena. I have a speech impediment. If I stutter, give me 4 hours and the word will come out. And when they laugh, I know I got them. I got them because,
Right.
like you, Courtland, I got the charm. I got the personality.
Oh, yeah.
And so, that's what HR is looking for, because my background back in the day was in HR. And so, we want to hire people who will get along with everybody else. And so, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, by just telling them, I mean, you can't hide it. I mean, come on. I mean, in job interviews, there is no hiding it. And when I bombed those first 10 job interviews, I mean, it was painful to watch them.
Yeah.
Looking back at me, having a block, my arms are going all over the place, my eyes are closed, I'm not breathing, aka
Right.
passing out. And so, but what I mean, it's just, for me, when I tell everybody that I have a stutter, it's about education, because there are a lot of people who still don't know what it is. They just have this notion, growing up, Porky Pig or Meltilus,
Yeah.
or whatnot. And so my motto is when you know better, you do better. And so it's just all about education. The more you know. That's my PSA. The more you know, and shooting star. So yeah. Okay. Let's talk about everyday situations. So, how do you handle the telephone?
I use talking on the phone as a practice a lot when I'm trying to work on techniques with stuttering. And what I do is that, when I was younger, and even still sometimes now, when I kind of get out of control with it, I would be on the phone and I'd be like walking all over the room and like tripping over myself and really kind of being dramatic about it. And nowadays what I try to do is to just stay very still in my seat and just kind of, act like I'm talking to someone in person, because it's very easy to let yourself allow all the secondary movements to come out when you're on the phone because no one's around. But I found that I stutter less and I'm able to communicate more efficiently when I just, kind of calm down. I can take a deep breath and just try not to move around a whole lot.
See, and the phone, for me, growing up, was my nemesis. I mean, every time I looked at a phone, my heart would hurt. It would pound like 100 beats per second. I mean, I was physically sweating. I mean, I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest.
Yeah.
And then in my 30s and in my 40s, I told myself, I am going to have to use this thing. I'm going to have to. And so I went on eBay. I bought an old phone and I practiced. And so when I was talking about my high school days, my drama days, my acting days, I put all those acting techniques to work when I would practice talking on the phone. I would imagine it ringing and then I would pick it up and talk. And then I would, practice picking it up and dialing. And so I did that for months. I mean, I did it month after month after month, because in drama class, they taught us if there's a skill that you want to get good at, you need to practice. You need to put in the hard work and you need to practice. And so that is what I did. I bought an old phone. And so I would practice picking it up and talking, and then practice dialing and talking. That way, when it came down to real life application, I would pick it up and just talk, because I did it hundreds and hundreds of times before.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is it just takes a lot of practice to do it. And no one's going to be perfect the first time. And as a kid, I too was just terrified of the telephone, and I would try to avoid making calls as much as I could. But the more that I practice, the more that I can handle those kinds of situations a little more.
Oh yeah, I had everybody making phone calls for me. My parents, my brothers, I would pay them. Hey, can you call Pizza Hut and order us 2 large? Because right now, if I call, they'll be heavy breathing. They may call the cops,
Right.
And I can't be on TV again, just FYI. So
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. All right. So how do you handle restaurants pre-COVID-19? Because, we're in this pandemic now where, it's all apps and telephones. But pre-pandemic, how did you handle restaurants?
When I was a kid, ordering in a restaurant was probably the most terrifying thing. I would always have my mom or whoever was with me to order for me. And it wasn't until I started, I think it was in like the middle of high school or college, that I would start ordering for myself. And, once I had the confidence to do that, I could actually order the things that I wanted instead of the things that were easier to say.
Ooh, Courtland, let me tell you, I am right there with you, buddy, because I would order foods that I could say, but I didn't want to eat it. But what else are you going to do?
Right.
And also, by the same token, if I'm in a business building and going into an elevator, I pray it's empty. I'm praying to the Lord. Lord, if you can hear me, I'm here in Texas. Please have nobody in this elevator. As you know, there's Murphy's Law. And so it opens up and it's full of people. And so, I am, my heart just wants to stop beating right there. And so then, they tell you to hurry up and get in. I was like, okay, that's great. More pressure. And so I get in and that one person who's always happy and cheerful, outgoing, energetic, extrovert says, "What floor, sir?"
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to go to the 4th floor, but I can't say my F's.
Mm-hmm.
So my E's are good. So I'll say 8, please. So as we're going up the floors, I said, "Man, you are just an idiot. Why can't I'm just kicking myself mentally."
Yeah.
Then as we go up every single floor, and then we hit the 8th floor, and there are still some people in there, and to get out on the 8th floor. And so here I am, I'm trying to, hold back and not get out. And of course, that extrovert guy says, "Hey, here's your floor." "Yes, sir. Thank you." So I get out and I take the stairs all the way down to the 4th floor. So, yeah. Good Lord, I have been there, Courtland. Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah. I've experienced that too with elevators. It's not fun when you get in and, you can't say which floor you're going to go on.
God. We have interesting lives. So, yeah. Okay. So here is a interesting question, because one of my previous guests brought this up, and so I found it profound. So do you think that it's important to have a thick skin if you are a person who stutters?
I think that to an extent, it's important to have a thick skin, because you have to kind of filter out when someone is truly making fun of you, and when someone is just, kind of jokingly making fun of you, or, commenting on your stuttering. I feel like when I was in high school, I wanted to have more of a thick skin. I wanted to stick up for myself, and I guess I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I could have made enemies that way. And what I do now is, if someone's making a comment on my stuttering, I try not to defend myself really hard. I honestly try to use it as an opportunity to teach them about stuttering, and just say, "Hey, yeah, I stutter, I'll laugh about it sometimes with them." And I just try not to be extremely defensive about it, because then, if someone's like, looking at me and like they know that I'm defensive about my stuttering, they might not want to talk to me at all. And so I know that, to an extent, it's good to understand the kind of comments that you're getting on your stuttering, and I've just never really tried to be extremely defensive about it. And like I said, I just try to use it as a learning opportunity for them.
How cool! That's a great point. Now, you are over the age of 21, right?
Yes, I am 22.
Okay, so you are legal in all 50 states. All right, so let me ask you this question. Have you noticed? Because I have noticed. Okay, so when I go out with friends or colleagues, or if I'm at a business dinner, that when I drink, I don't stutter. I may have some Merlot, I may have a rum and Coke, but I have noticed that when I do that, I don't stutter. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I experienced the same thing too. It's really interesting, and I've tried to understand why that is. Because when I drink, I feel like I can loosen up a bit. I'm more social, and maybe it's because I'm more careful about my words or something, but I do notice that I stutter significantly less when I drink, which is really interesting. I'm not sure why that is.
One of my buddies who was with me after I had like 2 rum and cokes, he was telling me, he's like, Pedro, you are a different person because you aren't thinking about stuttering. You're just out there living your life. And so I thought, I mean, you know how Oprah talks about that aha moment?
Mm-hmm.
This was my aha moment, in which, I was told by one of my buddies who has known me for years, and to hear him tell me that when I'm not thinking about it, my speech does improve. So I was just letting that, marinate in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, later in life, when I hit the age of 40, that's when I said, I'm done. Okay. I am going to embrace my stutter. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to accept it. And then I'm going to focus on living, because it doesn't define who I am. I'm Pedro. I'm awesome. I have things that I have done in my life that have been awesome. And so I am going to focus on living. I'm not going to focus on my stuttering, and my, confidence. It shot all the way up. So now I am confident because, I love Pedro. I have embraced my stutter. And so I am now confident. And so when I do stutter, when I do have a block, I don't even worry about it anymore. I stop, I breathe, and then I keep on talking.
Yeah, man, I love that, and I'm exactly the same way. And I've noticed that when I start to focus more on myself and other aspects of myself besides my stuttering, it really, really makes me more confident in my stuttering in general, because I'm not thinking about it, 24 hours every minute of every day. And I felt the exact same way that, working on myself, being Courtland, was really what changed my life, because I can talk to people and not have to worry about, when am I going to stutter? I can just allow myself to be free and, allow my true personality to come out.
See, and you make very good points, because what I have learned through all these years is life is a celebration. I am going to enjoy life. I will live it to the fullest. And if I stutter, oh well, I'll stop and breathe and just keep on going. I won't dwell on it, because there's no use to dwell on it. Because, back in the day, in, grade school and junior high, I would get so upset. I would get so angry. That's when I would, have the migraines and the ulcers. And so, there's just no point in just, dwelling on it. Just stop, breathe, and just go on.
Exactly. I'm right there with you on that.
Now, have you ever done this? Because, I have a lot of tools and techniques and tricks in my toolbox. I'm over my, 40 years of stuttering. And so have you ever done this? Let's say you are having a block, and to help you get out of the block, you are either tapping your leg or tapping your foot or tapping your face to help you get the word out. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, that's one of like my largest secondary behaviors is moving my arms or my legs a little bit. And I think one of the biggest ones I have is kind of like tapping and like hitting my palm against my thigh. And one thing too, just kind of like going off the idea of like rhythm, is that I've actually been a drummer most of my life, so I think that that kind of helps me too, because when I can kind of stick to like a tempo of talking, it really helps me get my words out. And just like hitting my hand against my leg, it just really helps me. And it's something that I do try to control too. Like, I've been trying to keep most of stuttering within my mouth, but there are obviously times when it just kind of, the secondary behaviors are forced out a bit.
I mean, I've done that numerous times, and there was, that one day when I was talking to a person and it was outside on a sidewalk. And so as if it was yesterday, I can picture it in my head. So I was having a block. My eyes are closed. Arms are going everywhere. And so I'm tapping my foot to help me, get through the block. And, at some point when you stop breathing, you're going to lose consciousness. So that one time I lost consciousness, and there goes Pedro, bam,
wow,
onto the floor. And that's when I thought, okay, this is serious. Because I cannot be doing this. This is not a good look for me, to be on the concrete.
Exactly.
With people hovering over you asking, do you have a medical condition? Should we call 911? It's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just walk away. But yeah, I do that too. So, okay, let me ask you a very important question that everybody around the world would like to know. So what is your most effective technique that you do for fluency?
One technique that I do focus on a lot are soft articulatory touches. And this really helps being a speech pathology student, because we learn a lot about how the mouth works, how the tongue works, and really how to control that when speaking. So one thing that I've learned to do recently in the past 2 years or so is just to not force any sounds to where I'm making like dramatic movements in my mouth, with my tongue, with my lips or anything. And I really try to have, really light touches where, I'm producing any consonants, and I really do rely on prolongations and easy onsets to really just kind of slow my rate of speech down, because I remember a time when I would talk really, really fast, and when I would talk fast, I would stutter a lot more. So when I focus on where my tongue is in my mouth or where my lips are moving, I try to make those really gentle, soft touches, and often I try to anticipate when I'm going to stutter. So, I can use prolongation or easy onset tag techniques.
How cool. Because, those, I also have those in my toolbox. And so, I have so many tools. And so those help me also. And during those times when I have to answer quickly, I use bumper words. For example, when I'm in a business building and when a person greets me good morning, I have a hard time with my G's. And so I'll just add a bumper word. Hey, good morning. Hi, good morning.
Yeah.
And so, we're all different in our speech journeys, but, for me, that helps me out, with, all of the other tools in my toolbox.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I do that a lot too. And I didn't know there's actually a word for it. Bumper words, you said, right?
Yes, that's my own lingo.
Oh. Yeah.
It's not a researched or scientific. It's just Pedro's word.
Right. I like it though. It's a catchy word, and yeah, I find myself doing that a lot too. Especially when I introduce myself, I have a hard time with my M's. So when I say my name is Courtland, often the M and my I can have a hard time with. So often I would say, hey, my name's Courtland. So adding in that hey in the beginning, or any other word like that, it just helps with like the whole transition to the next word that I have a really hard time with.
Oh yes, I completely 100% agree, because when I was in the military, the P's are hard, and so I would have a hard time saying Pedro Pena, and so the P's would come off like a kiss, like Pedro Pena, and so the captain is like, "Are you kissing me, sir?" I said, "Sir, no, sir." Hence, I learned the bumper words.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Oh my
Ooh,
gosh. Wow, that's actually really funny.
Ooh, this is my life, Courtland. This is my life. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go over this topic, because this, comes up a lot. Do you go through fluency phases? Like for 1 week, your speech is, it's just horrible. You are not able to make a phone call. You can't, talk to anybody. And then for the next 2 weeks, you have excellent speech. I mean, you're just ho-hum, having a great time. You are talking to everybody and their sister. So do you go through fluency phases?
Yeah. Almost every week, every month of every year, I have really, really different variations with my speech. And one thing that I find interesting too is I mentioned before that I have another neurological disorder called Tourette's syndrome. And what I found is that some of my tics that I have involve like my mouth movements, and I've found that sometimes when I have really bad tics with my mouth with 1 month, I stutter a lot more that month than I normally would. And that's like one example, but on top of that too, I just have like the natural changing in fluency that a lot of us experience. And recently, probably like 2 or 3 months prior to this month, I was going through one of like the worst stages of my life. And as of like the last few weeks or so, it's kind of recovered a bit. So it's, I wish we knew more about that. It's really interesting stuff how our fluency can just change rapidly so fast.
Oh yeah, I mean, there there still needs to be a lot of research on stuttering because, there's still a lot more that, we don't know about, because with how I acquired my stutter is through a dog attack, when I was 5 years old. And that was a traumatic event. And so one of my other buddies, he had acquired his stutter when he was in his 20s, as a result of taking some illegal drugs. I mean,
Wow.
those were the, what's it called, side effects. And so, speech-wise, there's still a lot more research that, needs to be done.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's one thing that I really want to look into as a future researcher in the field, and that's something that I feel is just like one of the huge mysteries of stuttering, and it'd be really cool to try to look into.
Okay, so here is a hot topic. Okay, we have a couple of hot topics to go over, but here's the first one. And so when I ask other people around the world who stutter, when I ask them this question, the answers are split right down the middle, 50-50. So let me ask you, Courtland. So do you let others finish your sentences?
I try not to let them. Now, when I was younger, I was all about people finishing my sentences. I would want them to finish it because I really hated struggling with my speech. But as of recently, when I've had confidence in my speech, I have learned to really take more control and to communicate just with me, and not have other people finish my sentences. Now, some people kind of naturally do it, and you can't always, expect them to or not to. But when I have someone finish, or when someone does finish my sentence, I usually let them know. I say, hey, I would like to, have my chance to talk. It's usually kind of rude to finish other people's sentences who stutter. So I just kind of let them know that.
See, and you bring up a very good point, because for me, when they do it, 90% of the time they're wrong. So
right, exactly, that too.
Yeah, that's not what I was gonna ask you, but
yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on. All right.
Okay.
All right. So how do you handle bad days? I know with, speech-wise, we have our good days, we have our bad days, how do you handle bad days?
I really try to keep the mindset that I handle days one day at a time. So if I have a really bad day with my stuttering and I'm frustrated about it, I just try to remind myself, hey, there's a new day waiting. Tomorrow you could have a great day. And I try to remind myself that, every time that I've had bad days, I always power through it. And, it may not be the next day that I overcome it. It could be a week later or 3 weeks later. But I always remind myself, just to stay positive and to know your worth, and just, recognize that, this isn't controlling your life. You had one bad day, you can move on.
Yes, you are 100% correct, because, bad days happen to everybody. And speech-wise, if I'm having a bad day, like you, I tell myself, okay, the day's over. tomorrow will be a better day. It will be, it will be a good day, because I believe in positive affirmations that I tell myself daily. And so, yeah, I do that too. Now, here is another hot topic. Okay. This one is also a head scratcher for a lot of people. So when you are alone, can you speak without stuttering?
I would say that I stutter less when I'm alone, but if I'm talking to myself or if I'm like reading something aloud, I still stutter quite a bit. I want to say that when I was younger, it was actually kind of the opposite. I would not stutter at all when I was alone, but I feel like since I've adopted acceptance and I've allowed stuttering to become a part of me, it's kind of there with me like 24 hours, no matter who I'm with or if I'm alone. So, yeah, I still stutter quite a bit when I'm alone.
See, and I do the same thing when I'm by myself, talking to myself, as we all do,
Yeah.
no judging. When I'm talking to myself, I still stutter. When I'm talking to my dog, Ruby Jean, I still stutter. When I'm in the shower talking about my day, I still stutter. So, we're all different.
Yeah.
Now, this was brought to me a couple of weeks ago. And so, I thought it was interesting. Do you stutter worse when you're tired, or when you're completely exhausted, or when you're all stressed out?
It's actually interesting because I have like the opposite kind of effect. I stutter a lot less when I'm tired and when I'm stressed out. I notice this a lot when I'm studying with a group of my classmates and we're all like stressing out really hard for an exam. And usually within my group, I make hard study guides and I kind of lecture them a bit on it. So when I'm doing that and, we're all there really stressed about this exam, I hardly stutter. And I've noticed it too when I'm tired, so like late at night, if I'm on the phone or if I'm with someone, I stutter a lot less.
See, and I am in the same boat. When I'm tired, I don't stutter, it just comes out.
Yeah.
Because all day long I have blocks. I stop, I breathe. I stop, I breathe. And so during that whole day, that's exhausting. It is just draining. And so when I get home, it's like, I don't want to talk to nobody, but if I do, I don't stutter. Yeah. That is just interesting.
It's really weird. I don't know why, but
Now, has this ever happened to you? Okay, let's say you have a doctor's appointment, and so you walk in to the doctor's office, and there's an admin person at the front desk, and they greet you. Hey, good morning. What is your name, and what time is your appointment? And then you have a block. And it's not an ordinary block. This one is a long block. And then the other person is looking at you, and then they ask you if you forgot your name. Has that ever happened to you, Courtland?
Oh man, the infamous line, "Did you forget your name?" That has happened when I was a lot younger. Fortunately, that hasn't happened recently. But I remember when that happened, I get extremely uncomfortable, and most of the time I would just kind of laugh it off with them, or sometimes, gosh, like when I was younger, maybe in like, middle school, I would kind of give them like a weird look, like a, kind of stare them down a bit. And it probably made them uncomfortable. But if I heard that now, I, again, I'd probably laugh it off with them a bit. And I'd just say, yeah, no, I stutter. It's a neurological speech disorder. And, sometimes it takes a little longer for me to say my name.
See, all these memories are just popping in my head, as you're talking.
Yeah.
Because, if I had a quarter for every time that happened to me, I would have like a dozen Teslas just in my driveway, all charging. And so that's when I take that opportunity to educate. That's when I tell the person, I have a speech impediment, so I may need a little bit more time. You may see me block on a word. My eyes may close. My arms go all over the place. It's just me trying to talk with you. That way, for the next time that it happens, that admin person will know because they were educated. Oh, here must be another person who might have a stutter. So I will be patient. I will be respectful and just maintain eye contact and just let them get out what they need to get out.
Yeah.
That's where I come from. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay. So let's talk about your career path. Did you ever think that your stutter might hinder it?
Yeah, when I was a lot younger, I was really afraid of what kind of job I would have to get when I was older, because I wanted to choose something where I didn't have to do a lot of talking. When I was in middle school, I chose to try to become a graphic designer because that's what my oldest brother does. And that was kind of what I wanted to do for the next couple of years, because I knew that it's a lot of working from home. It's a lot of like your own work in a computer. It sounded nice because I didn't have to talk to people. And then actually when I started working with Dr. Ryan Pollard, my speech therapist, my junior year, he was the influence for me to pursue speech-language pathology. So, ever since then, I mean, I just graduated with my bachelor's, and I'm starting graduate school in the fall to become a speech pathologist. And to me, having a stutter being a speech pathologist, I think, I'm not going to say it hinders it. I'm not going to say that it's a benefit. What I can say is that I have a very unique perspective, and I feel that I'm going to be able to act as a role model and an inspiration for those who I'm working with. I mean, not only clients who stutter, but, clients who have other kinds of communication disorders. I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat here. So I'm actually looking forward to this, and really knowing that I can actually use my stuttering as a positive tool to help my future clients when I become a certified speech language pathologist.
See, and that is awesome because of the E word. The E word is empathy. Mm-hmm. Because you know exactly what they are going through.
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah.
You can relate. For me, I was pre-law in college, but there was this movie. I don't know if you've watched it. It's called My Cousin Vinny.
I have not, no.
Okay. Oops. So let me tell you, Courtland, that movie changed my life. Okay. And let me tell you, I watched it over the weekend, and it's a comedy. And there is a courtroom scene, and one of the lawyers has a speech impediment. Now, you wouldn't know it with how he carried himself. But when he got up to address the jury, my heart went all the way into my left shoe.
Wow.
Because he had a severe stutter. And he is a lawyer in a courtroom. And he's doing everything to get the word out. He's pounding on the jury box. He's spitting inadvertently.
Yeah.
And their eyes are all open and their mouth is open and they're just in shock.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when I told myself, that ain't never going to happen to Pedro. That is not going to be Pedro. And so let me tell you the power of fear. Fear is a extremely powerful emotion. That Monday, I went into the counselor's office and changed my major from pre-law to psychology because I said, that is not going to be me. That will not be my life. Mm-hmm. Because watching the jurors, it was just mortifying. It was, I cannot tell you, fear just completely took over me that entire weekend. And it just, it made me on Monday morning go in and change my major because, growing up, I've always wanted to be a lawyer because I love to argue. And so I thought I'd be a very good attorney in corporate law. But no, that movie, it changed everything. And so I went to school. I have a bachelor's in psychology. I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology. And so now I help people in a different way. But growing up, I had the same fears that you had. Will I ever have a great job, a career? Will I ever, be successful in life? Because, people told me my entire life, they told me I was slow. They told me I was stupid. They told me I had a form of mental retardation. They told me that I would never amount to anything. They told me it would be best if I just applied for disability and stayed home and get my check every month.
Yeah, and that's hard when people tell you that. It's kind of, in my eyes, it's like admitting defeat with your stuttering. And, I applaud anyone who breaks out of that and, does what they want to do in life and, really try to come out of their comfort zone.
Yes, 100%. Look at me now. So
yeah, exactly.
Hashtag, it's all good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So let's change gears a little bit. So, dating is hard for everybody. But, if you stutter, it's like 1,000,000 times more difficult. How did you handle dating with having a stutter?
So, I've actually only had like one serious relationship. It was last year. It was a year-long relationship that was long distance. And the one really awesome thing about that relationship is that we met at working at Camp Say, which is a summer camp for young kids who stutter. And so, my girlfriend at the time was, extremely knowledgeable about stuttering and was extremely open about it. And I never felt, insecure about it at all. She's still working there as their program director. And, we felt like, we could joke about my stuttering sometimes. And it was never anything that really got in the way. Now, when going on like regular dates, I feel like when I meet new people for the first time, I usually somehow let them know beforehand that I stutter. either they look at my Instagram or like my YouTube or something, and they're like, oh yeah, he stutters. And usually I'll mention it too on a date, and it really breaks the ice. And I feel like I've never actually had like a negative experience with my stuttering when going on a date. And I really just try to be myself. I be confident, and that's really all that it works. I mean, I try not to let my stuttering get in the way of that.
How cool. That is truly awesome. Because what I believe is the heart doesn't care if you stutter. I mean, it just doesn't. So, it's all good. So what do you think about all this new technology? You have Google Home, you have Alexa, and then you have the S word with Apple, which I have a hard time with. Do you think that this new technology is helpful or hurtful for people who stutter?
In my experience, it's definitely been pretty hurtful. I have a lot of fun with my Alexa. My old roommates and I used to have one in the living room, and whenever we'd be like listening to music or something, I would tell Alexa to change the song to something else, and probably 9 out of 10 times I would stutter a lot, and the Alexa would always cut me off, and like eventually my roommate Brad would have to just say it for me, because the Alexa couldn't understand me, or wouldn't give me the time to actually say the name of the song, or whatever it was. And I actually don't ever use Siri on my phone, because it's the exact same problem with that. It'll often misinterpret my words. It will cut me off a lot, and I just have a really hard time with it. And hopefully maybe sometime someone who works for Apple or Amazon could try to look into ways that Siri or Alexa, Google Home could try to be more accommodating to people with speech disorders.
See, and I'm in the exact same boat, because when I try, it cuts me off, and then it will give me something completely different.
Yeah.
That I didn't even want, and sometimes it goes to the extreme. I said no.
Yeah.
That is not what I wanted, Google. So
exactly.
Now, many people that I talk to regarding this topic, many of them tell me that they use it as a tool to practice, because it's not a human, it's a robot. And so, they can practice their speech, I'm on it. And so I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I've never thought of it as a tool to practice your speech. I actually want to look into that. I think that'd be really cool.
See, and my SUV is, voice activated everything. And so, I try. I mean, I breathe, I try, and you know what? I'm like in there for 20 minutes. I'm sweating like a dog in this Texas heat, trying to turn it on.
Yeah.
Just push a button. That's it.
Right.
Let's do it manually. So
right.
This is my world. All right. So speech-wise, what has been a challenge that you had to overcome, and how did you do it?
Yeah, actually one challenge that I've had more recently that I've overcame in like the past year or so is working with kids. So in my field of speech pathology, we do a lot of like volunteering and observing. oftentimes we get hands-on experience working with kids. And when trying to talk to kids, it's usually hit or miss because they can, they don't really understand what's going on when you stutter. So I've often had a hard time trying to communicate with them. And so what I've done is, when I'm working with kids, I kind of adopt like this new mindset where I drastically reduce my rate of speech, and I, exaggerate some sounds and words, and I put extra stress on certain syllables. Just trying to talk to them on their level and trying to speak more fluently, because if I'm having a hard time stuttering, the kids, they have attention spans that they'll start to look away right when you start stuttering. So and I've had that happen before. So I really try to be mindful of the way that I'm talking to them, and I just try to slow down my speech and try to make it more fluent so they can understand me better.
Oh, how cool. Now, what has stuttering taught you?
Stuttering has definitely taught me a lot about who I am, and just a lot of like good life skills. One thing in general is it's made me so much more of a active listener, where I don't interrupt people when I talk, and I really try to listen to what anyone has to say. And even if they have a speech disorder, if they stutter or if they have anything else going on, I always try to give them the time of day. One thing too that stuttering has taught me is just to really be careful about what I'm saying. And I'm actually pretty fortunate that, stuttering has probably saved me in some conversations, because I'm really careful about the words I say and how I say it. And I feel like if I were to just like ramble or something, I would maybe say some things that I would have regretted or something. So I'm definitely more careful with like the words I choose. And, stuttering has really taught me just to kind of take a step back and observe what's going on, observe a conversation, and just try to be like the best kind of conversation partner that I can be, and not try to, rush a conversation or say things I don't really mean, just because I have the ability to say them.
See, and that is awesome, because like you, my stutter has also taught me some awesome life skills that I use to this day. Many people tell me that their stuttering is a curse, but for me, I can only speak for myself. My stutter has been a blessing, because it's taught me how to have empathy. It has taught me how to be brave, courageous, because we all have that power within us. We each have so much power that we don't even know that we have. And when I turned 40, that's when I found my inner light, my power. And that's when I said, okay, that's it. I'm Pedro. I stutter. Life goes on. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to accept it. And so I'm going to live my life, because back in the day, Courtland, let me tell you, when I would have a block, I would get so irate. I would get in a rage of just anger, and just, tell myself, all that negative self-talk. I would tell myself some ugly things.
Oh, yeah.
Ugly things. But, when I found my power, my inner power, I said, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Because I can do things that I thought that I could never do. because I was told my entire life that I couldn't do a whole bunch of things. But, once I found my power, I said, oh my God, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and like like you mentioned about like the whole negativity talk with yourself. I did that a lot when I was younger too. And one thing that stuttering has really taught me now is just how to be a more positive person. I spent so many years just hating my stuttering and hating just many things. I mean, I dealt with a lot of depression because of that, and I feel like once I accepted stuttering, once I allowed it to be a part of my life, I've learned to appreciate the little things in life, and I feel like I wouldn't have had that experience if I didn't stutter. So it's really, in my life, it's really been a huge blessing.
So let me ask you this, Courtland. Did you name your negative self-talk? Because for me, I named mine Oscar. And so you may not remember this, but when I was growing up, we would watch PBS, and there was Big Bird, Bert and Ernie, those that what was it called? Sesame Street.
Mm-hmm.
There was one character called Oscar the Grouch, and so he lived in a garbage can, and everything he said was negative. And so what I did was I named my negative self-talk Oscar. And so when he would rear his ugly head, and that happened a lot, I would just tell him to shut up. Go away. I don't need you right now, Oscar. And so that really helped me out. Did you ever name yours?
I did not, but I think now that you mention it, I want to name it Chad, because, when I went by Chad, that's really when I experienced a lot of the negativity. So yeah, I think Chad is a good fit for that role.
Right, exactly. Okay, now, so what advice would you give to another person who stutters?
I would say that the journey to acceptance it's a long road. It's not going to happen overnight or in a week. It could take months. It could take years. So really trust the process, push yourself, experiment more, and just have confidence in your stutter. Everyone has so many talents and things that are unique to them. And once you stop comparing yourself to the rest of society, you can really learn how to shine on your own. And, I've always loved this phrase. It's, know your worth. And to me, that's just so powerful, because it looks past anything negative in your life, and it focuses on who you are. And who you are is who you are choosing to be. It comes down to choices during the day, and when you're making choices that are going to be benefiting yourself and others and your stuttering, it's it really helps to have a positive mindset about stuttering and a positive outlook on life.
How cool. That is great advice, because you were dropping some golden nuggets there. And so one of the golden nuggets that just resonated is do not compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the easiest way to have yourself set up for failure, because we're all different. I mean, with our speech journeys and everything, I mean, there is no point in having to, compare yourself to another person because we're all different.
Exactly. Yeah. And I spent a lot of my life growing up comparing, especially my speech to other people who didn't stutter. And that brought me down because that's all I was worried about. And once you stop caring about that and just focusing on trying to be your best version of yourself, you really start making little changes during the day, and you start just, loving life a little bit more.
Ooh, yeah, you are 1,000% correct, because you just hit it right on the nose. So if you had the opportunity, Courtland, if you had the opportunity to give insight about stuttering on the world stage, what message would you convey?
So, stuttering, although it's seen as a very stigmatized speech disorder, can be really a very normal thing. I think that the world kind of needs to take a step back and have a little bit more patience for those who stutter. All the discrimination, the bullying, the stigma, it really makes everything worse for those who just simply can't control it. Every day can be a struggle, and society has really set into place a lot of the struggles that people who stutter have to deal with. And, I think the world just should know that people who stutter, we're just like them. There's nothing really different about us. We just take a little bit longer to speak sometimes. And, I think that really shouldn't be seen as such a huge deal, because, I've met so many people who stutter who have such incredible characteristics and are just amazing individuals. And, I think the whole stigma behind stuttering has really, made a lot of the world think that, this is just a horrible thing in our lives. And, to some people who stutter, it may be, but for a lot of us, there's really a lot of us who embrace this, and we're just trying to live our normal lives.
See, and that is an awesome message, because what I tell a lot of people who stutter from around the world, that we're awesome, that we are brave, we're courageous, we are creative, and we are resourceful. Because let me tell you, what takes lots of people a minute or possibly two to, okay, let's say record a voicemail. Okay, it's easy for them. For Pedro, it takes me an hour. It takes me 1 hour to record a voicemail that lasts about a minute or two. And I mean, that's what we have to do. And, we are such hard workers. I mean, we work 20 times harder than everybody else because we have to. It's called survival.
Yeah.
It's called survival. So, Courtland, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I have a awesome global audience. I mean, they're awesome. They're from all over the world: Australia, Mexico. Hola, ¿cómo estás? So let's say they wanted to reach out to you. How would they do that?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. My account is Courtland Crain, and I also have a YouTube channel. It's also just Courtland Crain, where I make a lot of videos about stuttering. And if anybody wanted to email me with any specific questions or, wanting to reach out anymore, they can email me at cranecourtland@gmail.com.
We will have all those links in the podcast notes. And so, can you talk about Camp Say? Because I've heard some awesome things about that organization.
Yeah, of course. I absolutely love Camp Say. I went there as a camper back in 2014 or 15 when I was a senior in high school. And, I just can't say enough incredible things about the organization and just the camp in general. I mean, this is, how a lot of campers describe it as a sanctuary for kids who stutter to come and, feel accepted and make friends and feel like they can, escape the reality of the world that they live in. This is a 2-week-long camp that previously was in North Carolina, but the past couple of years it's been in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And, the kids are able to just, enjoy a regular, awesome summer camp with other incredible kids who stutter. And a huge message that we try to convey to the campers is that it's okay to stutter. They always get the time of day to speak when they're at camp with us. And we really try to teach them, their worth and just how, they are incredible kids. And, I feel really honored to have, the opportunity to work there, the past couple of years. And, again, this year, and, it's just really a great opportunity for any kids out there who stutter, who just, either have never met anyone else who stutters or just, want to try to make lifelong friends. It's an incredible opportunity.
That is awesome. We have a local chapter here in Houston, Texas, and so one of our baseball players, I think George Springer, he stutters. He is a Houston Astros, and so he volunteers here at the Camp Say here in Texas, and so I've been thinking about reaching out to them and volunteering because I want to do what you are doing. I want to give back. I want to help.
Yeah, and it's really a great way, and they are so welcoming to anybody who wants to help, and it's great that they've really been expanding all over the country. They're having their Camp Say for a day events all over the country, and with George Springer, they try to do events with him, and he's really been an incredible advocate to the organization.
There is another person, Paul Rudd. He has a bowling charity, I think, right?
Yeah. They do a huge event every year. I believe in New York. I've actually never been to it, but I see pictures of it every year. It really looks like a blast. I mean, it's a huge event where, the kids are able to, hang out with him and bowl with him. And, he's been another huge advocate for people who stutter. And it's really awesome to see celebrities, take on that role and try to give back and, really try to help give confidence to these kids who stutter.
See, to hear that and to watch that, I mean, that is just truly awesome. You know, okay, so let me breathe. Okay, Courtland, so I want to say thank you for joining me today.
Of course, yeah, this has been really incredible.
You have been hashtag awesome. And so I just want to say that you are a true inspiration for all people. And so I know that your future as a speech language pathologist is going to be bright. It's going to be awesome. And so, down the road, I know this will not be our last conversation because I have a lot more topics to go over with you when you do become a speech language pathologist. And so I hope that you will come back and we can have another chat.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And, I would love that. There's obviously so much to talk about with stuttering. And, I'm 100% willing to come back and chat with you more.
Thank you, sir. I hope you have an awesome day. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
Thank you so much. You too.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.